this story is such an epic story, from this being such a hot company to sort of its explosion.
Yeah, I mean, if you read the SEC complaint, what you see essentially is a company that made some really big promises and tried to fake it before they made it. And, while that might work in some places in the startup world, it doesn't work in an industry where you're regulated by the federal government. In this case, a lot of the health authorities down there. And the claims that they had made began to unravel, but they were still raising hundreds of millions of dollars from investors after they'd gone out and saying, hey, we can test for 1,000 conditions with a single drop of your blood. They couldn't do it. And what we're seeing right now is Elizabeth Holmes, the CEO of the company, this person who became kind of an iconic figure for a period of time, going to be banned from running a public company for 10 years, giving up much of a voting control of the company, paying a fine. This feels like the end of this story for a company that I think a lot of people once thought was going to change medicine.
Does Theranos still exist in some form? And what about the technology?
It sort of exists. I mean, what they've said is that, hey, we've shut down our consumer-facing labs. She's been banned from running a lab company for 2 years. So they exist as an R&D company that has some investor money that is trying, that says it is working on its technology. But, that technology, I think, has been exposed by a lot of people as what appears to be a fraud. And so it's kind of unclear what they're doing. They have office space, they have some money.
Right.
I don't know if we'll really ever hear of anything from them again.
And I know you cover it from the medical side as opposed to from the regulatory side, but do we know this SEC fine and the accusations, how it compares with other situations like this?
10 years is a long time, I think, no matter what. Now, admittedly, she wasn't running a public company before. It means and I don't think anybody would, look at Elizabeth Holmes and say, hey, please be the CEO of our publicly traded company and, go ahead. So, in that respect, it may not be particularly meaningful, but I think there are some serious, symbolic penalties here, in addition to a rather, a not insubstantial monetary penalty. $500,000 is nothing to sneeze at, so.
Are other companies working on this now, this at-home blood testing?
Yeah, I think there's been a desire to look at the lab testing market and say, hey, this, it's kind of a pain for patients. You got to get all this blood drawn, so on and so forth. But it turns out it's really complicated to solve. This is not an easy thing to crack, or, some people have done it. So there are a lot of people who are trying to get at parts of this and saying, hey, we can test for a few of these things, using less, or we can do a little bit of this or a bit of that. But nobody's making the promise of, changing the world overnight here.